So good morning. We are here with another PBL Talks. It's really a pleasure for us. Today we have Marta Villar, who is a tax law professor in CEU San Pablo University of Madrid in Spain. For us, it's really a pleasure and honor to have you here and to have the possibility to understand what are the measures that Spain has taken to counteract the COVID crisis. So Marta, thank you very much. And if you want to describe us what's happening in Spain with a particular focus on the tax measures and what the Spain government has taken and has put in place to address this situation.
First of all, thank you very much, Ottavia and Pietro, for inviting me. I'm really delighted to support this video clip series. The extraordinary situation we are living because of the pandemic is testing the way of our countries are reacting to adopt the right financial and tax measures to support their citizens and businesses and to provide vital public services. There is no doubt that the health sector is the first one to be supported, but the economic and social sectors have been also impacted very hard, especially in countries such as Spain, where the quarantine requirements have been, at least up to now, very, very strict. Over the world, the responses require fast reaction with regulatory measures based on solidarity and efficiency criteria. It is not easy at all because, on the one hand, countries need extra resources, and on the other hand, there is the need to ease tax and financial burdens. And all of this in countries like Italy or Spain under the very strict European and national budgetary constraints. In any case, we can see that governments and tax administrations are taking several similar exceptional measures. For example, as a report from the OECD dated on 21 April shows, the same measures are being taken to ease the burden of taxpayers to support businesses and individuals with cash flow problems or otherwise facing hardship. Under this common context, Spain has adopted short-term and temporary measures, mainly to enhance benefits entitlement, business cash flow, more generous tax transfers, and to support employment. For example, vulnerable groups, such temporary workers or self-employed, are receiving extraordinary subsidies. Refinancing is also promoted, facilitating the access to loans. In Spain, as you know, the state of alarm was declared in March 14 by a royal decree which included the first important measure, the suspension of the procedural deadlines, but not for the tax ones. Since 25 March 2020, tax offices are closest to the public. It is important to note that the tax administration's website has a banner and a specific section dedicated to COVID-19 tax measures, and therefore it is helping a lot for assuring tax certainty in the compliance of tax obligations. Apart from a great number of sectoral measures, other royal decrees, number 7, 8, 19, 14, 15, and the recently one, 17, published just today in the Spanish official journal, gradually addresses the specific tax measures, most of them being procedural and temporary, not sectoral, as you have, for example, in Italy. I would like to refer to the most important ones. First of all, there is the measure of the deferral tax payments for a quantity not exceeding 30,000 euros. In this regard, additional time is possible for dealing with tax affairs for small and medium-sized companies, as well for self-employed individuals. But in this case, there is a restriction because there is the limit of having a turnover in the past year, in 2019, up to 6 million euros. Only in this case, only these cases are allowed for a deferral of tax payments of 6 months with guarantee exception. It is important to note that guarantee is usually required under the General Tax Code rule in a normal situation. Additionally, no interest will be charged during the first 3 months. Besides, 1 month of delay to fulfill the tax quarterly self-assessment is possible for taxpayers not exceeding a turnover of 6,000 euros in the past year. And apart from that, enforced collection activity to execute immovable property guarantee were suspended. The second important measure is the deferral of custom duties. And in this case, it is that because of the EU regulation, because it's competence. And in this case, the measure tried to support the e-commerce and also to simplify many of complex requirements, especially for health products. There's also an interesting measure, which is the suspension of guarantee enforcement. And finally, for employers affected by COVID-19 pandemic, there is an exemption from the payment of employees' social security duties, but provided that the employer guarantees employment of its workers. In any case, the first substantial tax measure have only been adopted last 21 April through the Royal Decree 15/2020 in VAT, corporate income tax, and in the personal income tax. Regarding the deadlines, this Royal Decree also changes the references from April, May to the final of June, just to adopt the dates to the extension of the state of alarm in our country. In the case of the value-added tax, the changes affected to the tax rate. First of all, we have 0% tax rate temporarily from 23 of April to 31 of July, exclusively for delivery of goods and imports of a list of products. It is worthily mentioned that in this case, Spain has extended the scope of the EU decision, and 0% is applied not only to public bodies, but also if the recipients are hospitals or private companies with a social character. This 0% tax rate does not limit the right to deduct supported VAT. Besides, this Royal Decree changes the VAT law, tax law, to reduce to 4% the rate applied to digital books, newspaper, and magazines. And now the rate is identical for physical and electronic books. In the corporate income tax, the measures consisted on an extraordinary option for fractioned payments, but it only applies to companies with a turnover not exceeding 6 million euros, and it is not applied to tax groups. And finally, in the personal income tax, the measure introduced more flexibility in the traditional time and legal requirements to change the way of calculating the tax base for this year, for 2020, to adjust tax base to the reality. The last Royal Decree 17 have held financial and tax measures to support the cultural sector, and it includes subsidies, the access to unemployment subsidies for artists, tax benefits under specific programs, and the raise of the general reduction in the corporate income tax to 30% or 25% of the tax base for the cinema production in Spain. And besides, it also changed the patronage law to promote donation, introducing a deduction in the personal income tax.
Thank you, Marta. Really clear, a really nice and wide overview. Fantastic for us. Normally, in our talk, we like also to speak about the future. Now we are in a crisis, in a difficult situation. We will face the crisis in the economy for the next months and maybe also for a couple of years. So it's important also to have an overview from your side on the future legislation thoughts, what in Spain is going on or shall go on in the next future.
How about the future? Who knows? It's an interesting question. We will see. In my opinion, the most important changes should be made at the international level in order to have a consensus. But for Spain, our Ministry of Finance has announced to have a Google tax, a financial taxation tax, and an increase in the main figures in the current taxation system. For the corporate income tax, it is announced a minimum tax level of 15% for all the companies, and with an increase of 18% for banks or for all oil companies. In the case of the changes announced for the personal income tax, the idea is to increase the tax rate, at least for the income of workers and savings. And in indirect taxation, the idea is to focus on the specific taxes on diesel in order to increase the tax rates for the consumption of diesel, and of course to increase the capital gain tax and the inheritance taxes, which in our country are shared by the autonomous communities. And that is all that is announced by our ministry. We will see if there is also a national consensus in order to have all the parties together to put in force these ideas. But in any case, with these announced measures of others, we probably see big changes in our taxation system. And that is all from the Spanish part. I hope you will find interesting this short presentation of the main measures, temporary at the moment, but we will see if we are able also in Spain to be imaginative enough to help to find the best ideas to have financial tax measures enough importance to help our economy and our society to go to a best situation. And that's all. Many thanks again for your invitation, and please stay safe. Bye. See you soon.
So thank you very much, Marta. Thank you very much for your insights. It is very interesting for us to understand which kind of fiscal measures Spain has put in place to recover with the COVID-19 crisis. It's also useful to know which kind of measures has been announced by the Spanish government for the future. As we know, for the recovery phase, it will be very important to facilitate the economy, but also to increase the funds available to implement the recovery itself. So, in our case, it's interesting to note that regarding the corporate taxation, a minimum tax level has been proposed by the Spanish government, as for example at the OECD level, and with regard to personal taxation, an increase in the percentage taxation has been announced. We will see what happens in the future, and we hope that also the recovery phase will be fine for all of us. So, dear Marta, thank you very much for this talk, for these interesting talks. We hope to see each other again soon, probably in person. Stay safe. Bye. Thank you. Bye.
You're welcome. Stay safe. Bye.
Thank you, Marta. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.